Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy Legend, and I'm back with another video. You already know what this is just by looking at the thumbnail. Now, I know I haven't uploaded this in 2 months, but if you want to recap, just go rewatch the first part of this, and then come back to this video. That's gonna be your recap. But without further ado, let's just get into the intro so we can start this. What if?
Yeah, I put out all this art, it's my only medicine, yeah. Everything I do, I'm just being genuine, yeah. I'm sick of being screwed, feel my own adrenaline, yeah. I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah. I'm grateful, oh yeah.
Are you alright in there, Nissan? Nezuko-chan? Tanjiro asks, looking worried, after he had managed to get free of the mass pillar and ran for his box that held his sister inside of it. Two of them? Was there not just Nezuko-chan when I met you? Gyo asked, narrowing his eyes and looking sharply at Tanjiro, who nodded absently while there was crooning noises from within the box. There was just us two when you found us and sent me to be trained. Nissan is a woman, a demon, that we had found in the forest when I was younger, and who we hadn't known was a demon at the time. She was scared for the sun, so we let her stay in our house for over a year. She had never hurt or even tried to hurt any of us. She had left a few months before Nezuko-chan was turned, though. She said she had to see if she could find someone. Tanjiro explained, and he gently rubbed and patted the box, as if to reassure the two women inside the box. She found us again shortly before I ran into Muzan in the city. She's been with us ever since then, actually. She's the one who helped us in the woods and saved those other slayers. Tanjiro explained before the white-haired guy with scars grabbed the box from his hands and darted into the shade, splattering his blood onto it to draw the demons out and make them show their true selves, in his words, while the guy with the snake pinned Tanjiro down painfully. Tanjiro popped his arm out of his socket and twisted slightly, managing to buck the guy off using his shock in his favor. While the move looked familiar to a few of the pillars, as he stood up and stared at the box when it opened. Nezuko-chan, Ni-chan, are you both okay? Tanjiro asked when two small heads popped out of the box, and both were glaring darkly up at the white-haired guy for a moment before turning away and looking at Tanjiro, who popped his shoulder back into its socket. Being stabbed hurt, Sanemi-san. The girl with the purple eyes said, glaring up at the stunned white-haired Hashira, while the other Hashiras were shocked and wide-eyed. Pardon me, sir, Tanjiro said, stepping onto the porch and going towards the two dark-haired girls as Nezuko glared and huffed behind her gag. Freaky. As she went back into her box and ignored Sanemi, who was gaping in disbelief. Are you alright, Nissan? Tanjiro asked, already poking gently at her stab wound, which had already healed. I'm fine, Tanchan. It's already healed. Hi, Shinchan. The girl, who quickly grew into a full-grown woman, said, waving brightly at the other woman, who looked a lot like her. Nissan? How? I saw you die. I held you in my arms when you died. The woman with the colorful Hiyori asked, staring stunned and in disbelief at her sister, who sighed slightly and shrugged a bit. Apparently, the irony of having one of the Hashira as a demon was too good for that ass to pass up, so he turned me after you had buried me. Of course, I didn't want to become that, which I had hated and hunted, so I fled to the wilderness and mountains to keep from feeding on anyone. Tanshan here had found me when chopping trees to make charcoal and took me back to his home. They all smelled so nice, but they were too nice for me to eat or even consider it. I didn't have any of my memories of most things for a while, and then I remembered my two adorable little sisters. I left the mountains to try to find you and let you know what happened to me, Kane said, smiling at her sister sadly. Unfortunately, you kept moving around and I didn't want to have to hurt anyone who attacked me, so I went back to the mountains. I found out what happened to the rest of the Kamado family and went to find these two. Thankfully, I got there before the run-in with that ass and stayed with Nezuko-chan, so he hadn't seen me, Kane said, and Shinobu's eyes were wide as she stared at her sister with tears in the corner of her eyes and slowly staggered forward. Nisan! Nisan! None of the other pillars nor Kaguya said anything as the tears slid down Shinobu's cheeks before she rushed forward and slammed into her sister, holding on to her tightly and sobbing into her chest. Shh. It's okay, Shin-chan. I'm back. I'm here now. Nisan is here, Kane said as she tried to soothe her sister, while the others respectfully remained silent for a while. Thank you, Shinobu said softly to Tanjiro and Nezuko when she finally pulled away from her sister. There's no need to thank us, Tanjiro said, smiling brightly at Shinobu while Nezuko raced over and looked worried, hugging Shinobu and reaching up to pat the pillar's head like Kane was. Nezuko-chan, stop that. She's not one of our younger siblings, Tanjiro said, trying to call his sister off, but Shinobu gave a choked kind of sob and bent down a bit to let Nezuko have an easier time of petting her head. Maybe she's not your little sister, but she's mine, and no matter what they say, most younger siblings like having their heads patted or rubbed, Kane said, grinning at a chance to mess with her beloved sister, while Shinobu blushed a bit and pulled away, making Nezuko give an upset whine-like noise and try to stretch to pat Shinobu's head again, much to a few of the pillars' amusement. She likes giving head pats, Giyu had asked, looking vaguely amused as he stared at them, while Tanjiro chuckled. Nezuko-chan is the second oldest and the oldest daughter from our family. Our four siblings would fight over who got their head patted first, from me or her, Tanjiro said, and the pillar's mouth dropped slightly. Your parents had 6 kids? The one with the mask asked in disbelief, and Tanjiro nodded his head. Yeah, despite Dad being physically frail, they had 6 of us. Of course, Nezuko-chan and I are all that's left. Tanjiro trailed off as he glanced at his sister while Shinobu had apparently gotten her to stop trying to give her head pats. So now Nezuko was over by Kaguya, patting his son on the head and gently rubbing his head while he stared up at her in confusion and curiosity. But he wasn't upset. How the hell did your dad have 6 kids when he was frail? Another pillar asked, and a couple of them started snickering slightly at the remarks they could make. How did Ubuyashiki-sama have 5 kids with his failing health? Tanjiro asked in return, and everyone was treated to Giyu snorting in amusement as Kaguya's face flamed bright red. It's all in the technique. Tanjiro answered his own question, and Kaguya buried his face in his hands to hide how red he was as 3 pillars and Kane started laughing uproariously. Oh my god, Tanshan. That's the greatest thing I've heard in the last 5 years, no doubt, Kane said, wiping tears off of her face while laughing. How were you aware of how many children he has? One of the pillars asked Tanjiro, who merely pointed to his nose. I met the little prince and one of his sisters at the final exam. I could smell on them the scent that they had several siblings, but couldn't pay too much attention to it then. Now though, I can smell 5 distinct female scents on them, both. One of a mother from the little prince and 4 sisters. And on Ubuyashiki-sama, I can smell he has a wife and 4 daughters, like how I can smell that the blonde pillar has 3 wives. And Giyu-san and Shinobu-san are apparently married or together, right? Tanjiro asks, smiling at them, all with a slight head tilt, while Kiryu moved from beside his father over to sit in Nezuko's lap, while she rubbed his head and played with his hair. Shinobu Nisan, one pillar questioned the title, and Tanjiro pointed at Kane, who was squealing and ribbing her now bright red sister. Kane Nisan told me to call her Nisan or Nichan, and that when I met her sister Shinobu-san, I would be able to call her Shinobu Ni immediately, and that she wouldn't mind, Tanjiro said, and that made sense to them all. Speaking of Shinobu Ni-san, Ubuyashiki-sama, I'm not sure if you or even she knows yet, but you should take Shinobu Ni off the front lines and fighting for a while, Tanjiro said, glancing from Shinobu to Kagaya, who tilted his head slightly, because she needs to reconnect with her sister and settle some things mentally and emotionally. Kagaya asked, thinking that was the most likely reason. Well, yeah, but also because fighting demons can't be good for her baby, Tanjiro said, as if it were obvious, and everyone froze at that. What baby? Shinobu demanded, wide-eyed, and Tanjiro turned to her, startled but nodded slightly. So, you weren't aware that you were pregnant? Tanjiro asked, just to be sure, and Shinobu shook her head wide-eyed, and her hands coming up to rest on her stomach. Thud. Holy shit. Did Giyu just faint? One of the pillars asked, while the flame-haired man checked on the out-cold water pillar and nodded. It seems that he has lost consciousness, the flame-haired man reported to one of the pillars, and they started laughing, almost hysterically now. Giyu, wake up, you little punk. Get over here so I can strangle you for putting a child in my little sister before you put a ring on her finger, Kane yelled at the out-cold water pillar. This has just turned into one of Mother's stories, hasn't it? Kiryu asked his father, who snorted slightly and nodded his head. This was turning out just like one of his wife's secret drama stories. Time skip. You did a really good job, Nezuko-chan. I'm so proud of you, Tanjiro said, rubbing the top of his sister's head as she climbed into her box and gave her cute angry face toward the pillars. I promise I'll read to you tonight and maybe sing your favorite songs. You were great, little sister, Tanjiro praised her, and she gave a happy noise as she budged her head up into his hand happily. Kiryu and one of the pillars looked slightly jealous as Tanjiro rubbed his sister's head. Go ahead and take a nap, okay? Tanjiro asked, and Nezuko gave a happy noise and ducked back into her box, closing the door and drifting off to sleep almost immediately. How can you still treat her that way despite being a demon? Shinobu asked, without meaning to, as she stared at Tanjiro as he stepped back onto the ground level with the pillars, and he just blinked at her. She's my sister first, a demon second, Tanjiro said without hesitation or any reluctance at all. So despite her now being a danger to you and everyone around you, you chose to continue to protect her, Shinobu asked, her fists tight as she gripped her Hayori. Of course, older siblings are born first so they can protect the younger ones, Tanjiro said, using his own personal creed as several of the pillars' eyes widened, and then Tanjiro looked at Shinobu and smiled at her. Everyone, even Kagaya, went slightly wide-eyed as Tanjiro reached his hand out and rubbed the top of Shinobu's head. I don't know who you lost, probably an older sibling, by the way you're talking, but you don't have to hold all the hate inside of your heart. Everyone is here because we lost someone to the demons, and there are plenty of people who still care about you, so don't let hatred consume you, okay? Tanjiro asked, smiling at Shinobu even as he rubbed her head, and her eyes were wide as she stared up at him for a moment, not saying anything. Oh, sorry. I guess that was disrespectful of me, Tanjiro said, pulling his hand back up off of Shinobu's head, and immediately she grabbed his hand and put it back onto her head. A small blush on her cheeks, and a glare aimed at any of the pillars to keep them quiet. It's fine, I don't mind, Shinobu grumbled quietly, and the other pillars looked ready to laugh, but weren't, because not only was her glare scary, but most of them remembered her older sister. Tanjiro blinked at her for a moment before smiling and making sure he gave her a good head rub while she nudged slightly into his hand. That ain't the only thing he about to be rubbing. Alright, now let me stop. Me too, please. A sleepy or dazed looking pillar said, sitting next to Shinobu, and Tanjiro didn't even hesitate as he reached forward with his free hand and rubbed the top of his head as well. You were probably a really good big brother, the sleepy looking pillar said, giving a small smile as he nuzzled up into the hand before moving away. Almost immediately, there was a pink-haired girl moving over now to be under Tanjiro's hand. The snake guy was suddenly glaring a hole into Tanjiro's head as he rubbed the top of the pink-haired girl's head. Holy shit, you give great head rubs, the girl said, and she was nearly purring as she leaned up into Tanjiro's hand, like Shinobu was. Let me not crack a joke. Y'all gotta let him rub your head. Pause. It's great, the girl said, moving away, and immediately the flame-haired man moved over curiously and let Tanjiro rub his head. Yes, these head rubs are great, the man said, beaming after a moment, and Tanjiro gave a small, bemused smile, and he ended up giving each of the pillars a head rub, Shinobu being the only one who didn't switch out with anyone, as she enjoyed the head rub the entire time. Oh, scritches, Shinobu said, and she nearly melted as she cooed when Tanjiro began to scratch her scalp lightly instead of just rubbing it. No fair, I didn't get scratches, the pink-haired girl pillar said, and Tanjiro immediately began scratching the top of her head. Giyu also got head scratches, and everyone saw him go almost boneless and melt. You are somehow getting most of my pillars literally melting in the palm of your hand by rubbing and scratching their heads, Kagaya said, sounding torn between disbelief and amusement. With all due respect, sir, his head rubs and scratches are fucking awesome, the white-haired one who had stabbed Nezuko said, and immediately received a dark look from Tanjiro. No more head rubs or scratches for you, Tanjiro said sternly, and the man looked horrified. What? Why? The man whined. Honest to God, whined, as he looked at Tanjiro, who gave him a stern look. You should know to watch your language around little ears, Tanjiro said sternly, and looked back at the young Kiria, who stared curiously at him. Father, can I get head rubs and scratches too? Kiria asked his father for permission. If it's alright with Tanjiro-kun. Kagaya didn't see any harm in it, as he stared sightlessly at Tanjiro and wondered how good the head rubs had to be to turn his hardened Hashira into a group of damn near purring kittens. "How are your head rubs and scratches so good?" Shinobu asked, and her voice was a lot lighter and sounded much happier than she had in years. "I had 5 little brothers and sisters, so I got used to giving lots of head scratches and rubs. You get good at anything if you do it long enough," Tanjiro said, and he immediately began to rub and scratch Kiria's head when he made his way over. "I'm going to get my sisters. They need to get head scratches too," Kiria said after a few seconds of enjoying the head rub and affection, quickly taking his leave to get his sisters so they could experience the head rubs. "Your head rubs are just as good as Nisan's was," Shinobu said, and she was nearly boneless and purring as she was giving scratches and rubs. That made her feel as if she were a small child again. Tanjiro didn't know. He didn't know it, but he was quickly being considered either the head rubber of the pillars or the big brother of the pillars. But guys, I'm going to end it off right here. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe while you're at it. But without further ado, I'm out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.